Welcome to Medicine Women Reveal. This is Brenda Bates, medicine and woman, and with me is
Jen Toffel, medicine woman.
And with me is
Scott Bates, Brenda's husband.
He doesn't sound all that enthused. Truly, I think he does love me.
Yippee!
Okay, so welcome to the show. Thank you for being in the chat room. Thank you for listening to us wherever you're at. There's a lot of things we can be talking about. And the first thing is thoughts. How do I pick the subject? Well, Spirit lays it out for me. The idea of thoughts is that thoughts become things. Well, I think about boobs. How come I'm not a big boob? Well, who says you're not? Because you don't physically look like one.
And if you're looking for some feedback in your life, that's how we can help.
Okay.
Maybe you don't physically look like a boob, but you may become a big boob.
Well, the term used to mean like a oof or oaf or what do you call it?
Exactly.
And so, things like that.
So, when it comes to thoughts, if you are having a 41 thoughts per minute, which we all do, if you are autistic, you could have more than 41 thoughts. That seems like streamlining past your filters, which could be triple, more than that, per minute. But, at the same time, most generally, there are about 60,000 words or thoughts per day. And that's a lot. Now, here's the thing you got to understand. When you're happy and you're centered, everything's calm. Okay, your head don't feel like it's full. You don't go into stress mode. You're actually balanced. You're happy. And then when there are the 41 thoughts, out of those, it starts to become stress, not in a negative sense of, oh my God, anger and all this, but in the sense of there's no sound. You don't really hear your thoughts. Then what happens is that you have now went into an auto-tune, and you are, the thoughts actually don't have a very loud sound, but they're, you've checked out. There's no feeling, no thinking. And it's just as nasty as if it was, oh my God, anger and all this, because they play a part by creating chemical peptides. And those chemical peptides help you feel what you're thinking. And most people disregard those. And they say, oh, well, I know what depression is, but no, I'm talking about when you even feel so content that life is happening and you don't like it, but you look and you go, no, I like my life, I don't have nothing to fix. And then, and you don't feel. That is also a way it pulls in. And then you have to understand that when we say we want you to heal, it's another way of saying we want you to resolve this. How can you be efficient with your own way of thinking? You don't have to watch all your 41 thoughts, but become aware of the auto responses that the natural rhythm in the back is telling the same whining story. And you catch yourself, your hands together, or you're sitting there, and you drift off into space, and all of a sudden you come back because something in the room brings you back. So you tuned everything out in your own little world of thinking. And you come back, and all of a sudden somebody goes, what's wrong? And you go, nothing. When in fact, there was a part of you that were having a conversation quietly in your head, and it was enough that it was irritating you. And then, but if you look, it'll be, oh, it's nothing, you know, I don't want to think it, you know, but it worries me to some degree, or, you know, I don't, you know, whatever. The point is that you have to become aware of those thoughts. Why? Because it's your soul telling you something. It simply is telling you you're losing power to something you know. Something is a continued story, it's conditioned, and it needs to be resolved. Why do I say it needs to be resolved, Jen? From your point of view, what do you think I'm saying?
So it's, we use the term creating closure time and again, but as you were, before I get into what the question is that you asked me, I was having a dialogue in my head, because that's what you were talking about. It's like a narrator in a movie.
Yes.
When you talk about you're having that conversation in your head, and that narrator is, well, da 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 da, and then and because we have a whole host of characters in our head, based on our relationships and friendships and that kind of thing. So this person said da 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 da, and when this person said that, this person said this, and this is all the chatter that's going on inside your head all the time, and creating closure quiets that.
Yes.
You come to the end of a chapter. When you come to the end of the, a good author will get you enticed to keep reading the next chapter. So it's like, dang, I can't finish that chapter because he just said 2 sentences that make me want to read the next chapter. Oh, now I gotta keep reading. But anyway, but what you're doing is okay. So you come to the end of the story. You come to the end. That's what the resolution is, that's what the closure is. It's the end to that story that's being narrated in your mind, so that you don't, because you don't realize that you're churning or you're stewing or you're simmering these emotions beneath the surface as this story is being told.
Very good. Now, one of the things that I notice is, so let's say something happened, you know, a month ago and somebody threw you off your center. They were just nonchalantly saying something as a joke, but they were the catalyst to set you up. Did they intentionally do it? No. Did their soul say, oh, this is my part. I have to cue, I'm coming in as a cast member to the movie so that you can play out what it is that needs to be resolved. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, so when that happens and you get thrown off center, the one thing that we quickly want to do is recover, and we want certainty, and so we have to go into assuredness, and so sometimes we scramble based on how we resolved it in the past, and sometimes we didn't have a good resolution. We pacified, we, what else do I call it, we deal with it, we cope with it, and we scramble.
It's a way to soothe it.
And what you're doing is you're going back to the first program that helped you soothe that particular thing that triggered it now, and you're like, oh my God. But sometimes it don't work. Now, what will happen to the thought is that you're happy, and all of a sudden bad stuff will occur. Bam, bam, bam. Every couple seconds you kind of have it intensifies, and you can't help but to repeat it in your head, to the point where sometimes you have to start telling people about it, and then maybe you have to get angry about it, and then you're doing your best to keep your thoughts to yourself, and then something will be seen on TV or in your area, and you're just, back into it again. And when the thoughts keep creeping in, bam, bam, within a minute, you seem like out of the 41 thoughts, you have almost the same repetitive story hitting you. And that is telling you that you haven't resolved something, and you went into the stress mode, fight, flight. And now all of a sudden you're kind of like in the freeze mode, and you're stuck between fight, flight, fight, flight, fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze. You have not resolved it out.
And what also happens is that pain touches pain.
Yes.
So when you're feeling a sorrow, a sadness, whatever flavor of that emotion you want to call it, that's good. If you haven't resolved that in the past, it's going to create like a domino effect, that this pain is touching this one. Just like when we have these national tragedies that happen, if we haven't processed that out, this event is hearkening back to events that happened this summer.
Yes. That
haven't been resolved. That harken back to this other situation, that go back.
The first original.
And so then you're just saying, oh my God, yes, this is an awful situation, but it's bigger than it appears, because it's just tapping into pain that's touching pain, that's touching pain, that's touching pain.
So it's like metal against metal. I keep thinking brake pads. You have the cushion in between, but then when the original part of how a brake is supposed to work, and those pads wear out, what happens? Metal against metal, correct?
Metal on metal, and you get a grinding sound.
And you get a grinding sound, and eventually it can wear down that metal to the point where now your balance part is that you become unbalanced, and then you got to get new pads, correct?
Yeah, and more work done. Yes.
More work than necessary. So what occurs is that you have to, your first defense is knowing when the alarm goes off. Is it really a healthy alarm? Sometimes the whisper is the alarm, and you are going up against your heart wall, or the first instant, and you're like, oh my God. Well, first of all, I would then take the fuel off that, and you're thinking, well, you need a red flag. Not necessary if it's one that's a false red flag, a false positive. Yes, it's a red flag, but wait a minute, it's not supposed to be at this time. So you diffuse that. And then if you see something else, what happens is then you'll understand a little bit more about what you have to be warning about. And then when it comes up, you have to understand that the universe is just responding to a thought, good or bad. And it doesn't, there's no blame into it. It is just the mirror reflection. And you have to be responsible for what you bring into the space, what you send out. And even if you never say it, you are still thinking it. For instance, when we're doing muscle testing, I don't have to say the question out loud. I can just touch you, get in tune with you, and then ask your body the answer. Because it has the intelligence that's within you, and I'm usually bypassing that, not asking your conscious mind, because you're unconscious all the answers. Your conscious mind can interfere.
Because you're just going to tell a story. No, I'm not thinking that. Why would you think I'm thinking that?
Exactly. So, one main thing is to pay attention to when the clue comes up.
Me neither.
When the clue comes up, and all of a sudden you start hearing yourself think it and say it more than once in a minute. And you're thinking it once out of maybe 24 days, that's different. But when you're thinking about it once every minute, or twice or 3 times every minute, then it is, oh wait a minute, I have an unresolved issue here. It's continued and it's conditioned. What do I mean by conditioned?
Well, it's, to some degree, you're eliciting a Pavlovian response, because that's the ringing of the bell, and then you get fed, and then you salivate when you hear the bell response. And so parents do that to some degree, too, of conditioning a behavior. They want to, actually, one of my friends was asking yesterday, what do I do about a toddler that's always getting in my fridge? I got 1,000 ideas. I don't have any kids, but I got 1,000 ideas. So my initial joke was duct tape, but one of her friends also said the same. We said it like at the same time. We didn't know both of us were posting from across the country. That was our answer to this person, but it was a joke. I said so I can't say that. I said so. Is it too old school to think of behavior modification? Is it, that's what you want to do? You want to modify that behavior. You don't want the toddler to get into the fridge, so you're going to do other things to modify that.
And reward and punishment.
And that's what I was asking. I said, okay, so, is she going to, if you keep her food, at her level, and she's able to access it and be healthy and not get into anything dangerous, then will she just get bored? Or just realize, hey, that's a place where I can go get food. Hey, it's like so how do you, you don't want the fridge just keep getting open and closed. So how are you going to, so eventually, I imagine the little girl is going to be conditioned one way or the other, but that also happens emotionally and mentally. And
well, I'd like to come back to that, because that is an awesome thing we can go on a tangent about. But, so we'll come back to that. So going back to those thoughts, you have a cast of characters that are in the background that are coaching you along or cheering you along, trying to give you upbeat if it's a bad thing. It's trying to help you be reassured again, but it's you zeroing down to where there's just one number, and you are on the fight, flight, freeze, which means you are in the dominant position of trying to figure out how to survive this moment. And it threatens all of the other moments in the rest of your life. And then it makes you go into tangents in different directions about, oh my God, what if this happens? Oh my God, what if this happens? The worst case scenarios. What will I do? And then you're creating your defense mechanisms because you think they're the enemy. So then it creates them to be the enemy. Then you have all of these things lined up. and you lose power to it. And that's why my voice is like, but you lose power to these thoughts. But again, if you are doing this and you notice there's a particular pattern of negativity, and what it means is that anytime that you start to lose power, it's a form of a negative part of you, because you're losing it. And as that begins to happen and deplete you, you're sending out these flashes to the mirror, and the mirror has to flash back. So that basically the universe is coming in a line with what your thoughts are. Somebody says, then you mean all those kids wanted to be killed? I didn't say the kids wanted to be killed. I said, okay, was that you have the kids usually are the ones that have to unfold their soul contract until they get to a certain age. Then it's about the response system. Children on the soul level, respecting on the soul level, is that their soul is that they're sleeping pretty much, but they have those first moments, these first things that they do, the first response. And how do they respond the first time? And then they get into a family that is hell, okay? That soul, not the child, keep the personality away from the soul, okay? That's two separate stories. The soul chose this family in this particular part of the country to go through this particular thing because it has to answer this or that, or have to develop, go into this, what do I have to learn, what do I have to unlearn. There's no emotion or mental process. This is all energies about how it's going to evolve. How is it going to awaken? How is it going to go to the next step? Is the consciousness, how is that shifting? As the child, as the soul enters the baby, then it all starts to unfold. As the soul contract starts to unfold, depending on what they chose, will depend on what experiences they had come in to get. What did they have to do from there? Now, the children, because there were so many, looks like a small soul group decided to make a statement to the response of what was going on in the environment, or whatever. It's not one answer, it's many. I have gone into, we heard today, another reason why it occurred, was that the gun laws were passed that said, what? We'll find out after this break. Alrighty, we were talking about the gun law that just passed. Do you want to explain it?
So, what happened in the state of Michigan last Tuesday, you might have seen on the news that there were a good 12,000, is what the count was, protesters for right to work legislation. The same day, and I knew this because I'm tapped into networks and that kind of thing, at social justice and that kind of thing, I was aware that they were going to be on the docket in legislation, also guns being allowed in churches and schools. And also a women's health bill was also on the docket around, legislation, whatever office you want to call it. So those two bills or whatever were also being voted on at the same time that all the attention was over here on this right to work, which is also, everybody has their opinions about, regardless of what the opinions are on this politics, but this is legislation that came to pass this past week in our state.
Now, what's fascinating about this is that I don't, in my reality, have a great fascination for guns, knives, weaponry. I don't hunt, but it doesn't mean we don't have those, because we do live on a farm. And you do need those protections.
You need to take care of business.
Because
and I understand that more living in the state of Michigan than growing up in LA. There were different guns that were present in my reality.
Because
so it's different. It's a different environment, and you have to take care of business and protect on the farm to some degree.
If you had, as a farmer's life, if you had to go out and get food, you would know how to do it. You know, you would take a gun, go shoot whatever deer or whatever it is you need, because you need food. If you were going to go kill a chicken, you probably would go cut its head off with a knife. You don't, there's just...
Axe.
Okay, an axe.
A sharp blade.
Yes.
But what does it really mean? It means that we know how to survive when
Right.
it comes down to we're hungry. Okay? And then there's the code of the farm that when you have animals and livestock, your job is to protect that livestock.
Right.
And when raccoons and things come along, your job is, because you penned the animals, is to now make sure that that environment stays safe. So you have to go out and do your daily job of making sure everything is protected. And that's one huge thing that I learned living on a farm. And so then there is the different states of belief systems. How many times have I heard in my world that Texas has it all? They got guns to protect themselves, they got this, they got that. And it all reminds me of back in the old days when you were going to school that you could take a knife and put a pocket knife.
We always carried pocket knives, and heck, we even had kids bringing their guns in the wood shop to get them refurbished or whatever. That's nothing, nobody thought nothing of it,
Exactly.
It's just, they had hunter safety classes at the high school, and I don't know.
So, but what?
It's gotten ridiculous nowadays.
But what's
because-
gotten ridiculous is people are going into survival mode instead of
Right.
processing out. They're blaming the outside. This did it. This did it. This does it. We got to stop this. We got to stop this and stop this. I don't give a shit whether or not you have a gun, a knife, or whatever weapon that's being blamed for the issue.
People need to be changed.
Correct, because what is the worst weapon? You are. If you have unresolved emotions, the mental health issue. Like I was watching, and I don't usually watch things, but I said, all right, direct my what I'm doing. Up pops this news feed about these kids being killed. The last line of it was, we need to look at the mentality of these people that are doing this. Nobody really directs that mentality. They talk about gun control, they talk about this, they talk about that, but they don't talk about that mentality. And it's like, that's what my job is. Medicine Women's job is to take and look and how to help what caused the mentality to be that way. Then you go and you help resolve these issues and create the closures you need. And everybody needs them.
And
There's,
it,
go ahead.
it's interesting because you talk about that, yes, you are the weapon. Now, I don't believe in guns. I don't need one, I don't want one. They're not, it's just not part of my world, not part of my consciousness at all. But I drive a car. I still have anger. I still get behind the wheel, pissed off at people, and the car could potentially do
Just as much damage.
just as much damage.
But here's the thing.
I'm not saying that I'm going to go do that, people. That's
But
my
here's-
disclaimer.
But here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you're a psychopath or whatever degree of metaprogram you are. They labeled and they said, if you have this going on, this is the kind of person you are. If you have this, this is the kind of person you are. If you do this, this is the kind of person. And really, what I've noticed is that the more unresolved issues you have, the more you get stuck in a repetitive loop. As I was explaining to my husband, you're in a positive, happy space. And if your soul comes in and starts unfolding, and you have the most roughest childhood ever that causes you to figure out how to survive, then you go fight, flight, freeze, but you're stuck. And then you go back to the fight, flight, freeze, stuck. When you create this repetitive loop, then you can't get out of it. And there's no way to finish out the process that we were born to do. We instinctively know how to do this process out. But because we become so domesticated, civilized, and told to have certain behaviors, then we have to live in these confined rules. Have you ever been in a situation where you know you don't fit, or they have all these strict rules, and you know that those rules don't apply when you're home, but yet you're stuck in an environment where these rules are very much devastating to you, but you sit there and have to learn these set of rules, and you have to learn this, and you have to learn this. You have to remember, we have to make known the unknown, and we have to stop chasing the dream that we're told to chase, because it doesn't allow for the imagination for us to grow. Everything in this, when you have, we're in the Iron Ages, we're coming out into the Bronze Ages, and in these particular ages was that we were so separated, and light and dark was seen as enemies, and that there is the opposite, and that we have both the light and dark, negative and positive, and evil and good in us, that it was just, that's banging against each other. As we start to move consciousness-wise, our thought patterns will switch. But the main issue is, are you just living in your survival mode? If you're just living in your survival mode, even though you think you're happy and content, take away money and guess what you're going to do? Unresolved issues of survival will pop up. I'll live on Skid Row. What's going to happen? Where am I going to live? How am I going to survive? Okay? Literally, that survival mode kicks in. And you're learning to stop living in the first, second, and third chakras alone. And those are states of consciousness. When you start to realize that you can resolve or go beyond or let anger push you out of fear and learn to create an established way of, I can do this, there is a set of confidence. The main thing that seems to be missing out of humans is the self-esteem for the flow of just love. There's restrictions, conditions, and things like this. But you need to be able to go in a flow, but create healthy boundaries. You still need to go into the flow and resolve some of these things that say that you can't. There are, when you're flowing, turns, you know, cliffs, different things. But if you're flowing like a river, it's not going to look harsh. And at some points, maybe you need it, who knows? But the main thing is to understand that when you just have one thought, oh, that's right, I got a phone call the other day that says that they accused me of something. And for you it's unfathomable because it's not like you that you would do that. But then yet they're accusing you and you can't help it. Why? Why? Where? When? How? How are they going to hurt me? Then all of a sudden the energy becomes that you're the one that's the victim. They have all this power to hurt you and to control you. Then all of a sudden it feels like they're getting bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden you're in more stress mode. You can't think your way over a paper bag. And you can't allow the energy of spirit to flow you out and rise above this. You will be attacked. This will happen. And part of the consciousness is that it will be done to you. There is a reward and punishment system on this planet. And when people say, I'm going to get it, they're talking about the fact is that they have the power to overcome you. And that revenge is huge. That greed is huge. And really it is feeling like all our rights are taken care away and that we don't have this and then we got to fight for everything. And if you look and kind of put the consciousness and you list what the signs are, what this consciousness is, you will then automatically start knowing where to unplug and say, okay, I don't like that channel. I don't need to be plugged into that belief. Really? You know, how do you do this? I had somebody walk up to us and, started telling me about gay rights. Well, the way they said it was, you know who's in charge of all these problems that we have? And I'm like, oh, interesting. I had no idea it was coming in this direction.
Go on.
And they basically said that it's the gays' fault. And I'm like, oh my God. They want to just put one finger out and say it's somebody's fault.
Way out of left field.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, did I just hear what I heard? Now, why would I need to hear this? So as a spiritual person, I'm
I
like...
wasn't expecting that.
Now, my response, and what this person was looking for was camaraderie. Feeling us out to see whether or not...
Where are you on gay rights? Good thing I was.
And so they're slowly... And I said, as a minister, I really appreciate the fact that you believe this way. But I also know that I don't play in those politics. And I love everyone. And regardless of what they do, they don't have to control me. Nor do they have to, you know, and then basically my husband's going, oh my wife's going to go on a... And so, you know, I backed down.
I was waiting for you to go off on him.
No, because then that would fuel the whole party that you have to have a fight. You
don't want to fuel the fire.
And I said, but we can heal that, because I'm a medicine woman. And of course, people don't expect that. So immediately he already knew, trying to feel out whether it's okay. Oh, she don't believe in that. All right, well, I can't be friends with that. But the old people, not old people, people usually in the old way of consciousness, in that group consciousness of that Iron Age was, oh my God, I got to switch my thinking to agree with them so that I'm safe. Maybe they're right. Oh, I didn't see that before. Oh. And what does it do to the contemplation? It screws up your inner world. It's like a power of suggestion, or the post-hypnotic suggestion. Because you want to survive, you end up losing your identity and going into other people's energies of identities.
So that's an interesting, as you're talking and the question's going through my mind. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to be swayed by you saying this is the way to be, this is what you need to do, you need to be doing this. I'm not going to be swayed because I want to stand in my authenticity. Mm-hmm. I want to stand strong. So then the question is, well now I don't want to do it by being a bitch. Mm-mm. Right. So it's about standing strong, believing your truth, not having to impose it on another person, but also at the same time, not having to be swayed. And just, okay, in a polite fashion, I don't have to agree with what you're saying, You don't, and I'm not going to force you to agree with my views if they differ.
Because when the energy was happening, he still respected me, but I could feel the energy shift, that he was feeling small, and all of a sudden I was standing taller, and I thought, oh. And it wasn't that I was trying to lord it over him. It was, as a minister's perspective, I respect what you believe, but at the same time, I don't come close to what you believe. I've grown from that. What happens is that I didn't have to, because I've resolved so many over-identities. Now, we really need to explain this. What do I mean by over-identities? I deliberately say this in this fashion because you have one true identity. And these over-identities all have their own characteristics and voices and, oh my God, all these different personalities. And they can be swayed, manipulated with guilt and shame and blah, 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 blah. But over-identities, what do I mean by this, Jen?
Well, I'm thinking of using the example of objects. So if you over-identify with an object, oh, I love pink quartz. Oh, I know how to use a pendulum. And
what she's doing right now is she's defining her relationship with this particular thing that she's looking at.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. If you can hear the tone and intonation of how I'm talking, there's a passion, there's a fire, there's a love, you know. And then I turn into a little schmeagle. My precious! It's my precious! And then you start getting why are you looking at it?
Don't even look at my thing.
This is mine.
You looking at that? I'm looking at that. I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah. So that's what we do, because on some level it's like, oh man, I didn't know I was looking for this, but I was looking for this and I found it, and now I can never let it go.
You know, and that's good. Before we go back into over identities, protest. Going back, they want me to emphasize that when you're standing in your authenticity, you have your truth. This is huge. There is the truth, the big T truth, which when you start to get into becoming a spiritual human and resolving those issues, you automatically start going into the big T truth. Because your personal truth does not have to be the only truth on the planet. But when you go into your truth, you have to remember, this is your perspective, your belief systems, your values, all your experiences, all of your perspectives. And it's your truth. Yes, it is, and that's why we respect your truth. But there's more than just your truth. Okay, now there are certain people that are supposed to be helping others to get to a specific truth. And there's different ways of getting there. That's why you have so many different doctors and holistic people and churches and things. It's to get to your truth that you're looking for, but you're also looking for the bigger truth. And everybody disagrees and argues with what is the truth. And I will tell you, when you are standing in your truth, you don't have to fight, because you don't need to judge, and you don't need to protest. So when that gentleman had said that to me, I didn't need to protest because I know that my truth is better than his truth. No. His truth is his truth. My truth is my truth. I'm sorry you experienced that way. Or I'm sorry that I don't experience it the way you do. However you feel, we don't want to put the power play or discredit anybody else's thing. But it's a part of, okay, I don't like what you said. And maybe you can just use an analogy of how you used to think that way, or how you see that it can be different. Or you don't even have to protest, because if they're not going to be, if they're going to shove everything on you to sway you, why are you wasting your time? Pick and choose your battles, but you don't even have to have a battle. All right, and then you stop protesting. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Hi. Now, it's funny because I know exactly what the spirits are saying, and they said that our topic is the thoughts. Somebody in the chat room, ooh, I like the topic tonight. And my co-host
saying
what topic?
There's a topic?
I don't know where you guys are. Left field? Where are you at?
Apparently I'm in right field, Jensen left. You're in center, I guess, Brenda.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so anyways, unraveling the thought is that spiritual investigation. We're going to go into that. And what's interesting is I pulled a card and I said, what does the card represent as far as tonight's topic, thought? And we're just going to have Scott join us by reading. I might stop you every few minutes so I can answer.
Card 45, okay.
Sad embrace.
Yeah, loss is part of life. Let go and allow time to heal you.
Okay, let go and let time heal you. Don't just let time, you know,
I have an issue with that statement is what I'm saying with my...
Let go and allow time to heal you. Time
Yes.
heals all wounds. You don't like that statement, Jen?
Yes.
All right, stop. Kimberly, you did nothing wrong. I did tell them the topic. They weren't listening to me.
Yeah, Kimberly, me and Jen
You
weren't paying
caught it.
attention. You caught it, Kimberly, so
Yes,
that's fine.
you're on board. We're
You're
not.
on board, yes.
So I already labeled it.
Oh,
You caught on. Thank you. At least I got one person that's caught on.
sorry.
My co-host. You want to come on, Kim?
Well, it's getting towards Christmas and we daydream a little, you know.
Oh my God, what are we doing when we have a Christmas show getting closer to the day? Anyway.
I don't know.
All right, just don't get more flighty than you are. Now, the thing is we want you to release, but use a tool. Make it resolved. If you let time heal it, all that does is take the emotions down to a numb state, and it stays in our foundation, and it does not heal. So continue to read.
Okay. You may be entered into a period where loss is a theme. Perhaps you're having to let go of a long-cherished dream.
Okay. You know, what's the theme? Then that is a clue for you to find out, and that's what we're going to do when we unravel a particular thought that has happened to my husband. And go ahead, it's about a dream.
If so, take heart, for this ending may have been for your highest good. A better and more powerful dream will be realized in your life if you can accept the loss. Relationships based on faulty foundations are meant to end at this time. Disappointment is a form of perception. If your expectations weren't met, a sense of loss arises, along with the sadness and grief. Express these emotions. Tears are like healing rain that can restore life to a parched inner landscape. Growth is always assured. Whatever the loss, however great it is, let go and experience your feelings so that you may soon see what beauty lies ahead.
That's when I use hope therapy, and I tell you to go let yourself, give yourself that. Don't resist anymore. So as you're using the healing tool of hope therapy, you're going into the emotions, you're going into the thought process, you're going in. And what you're doing is you're releasing it. As you bring the blood back up to your head, you're releasing it with your thought, and you're actually cleaning out what thoughts you don't need. You're actually creating a closure, and you're finishing out that fight, flight, freeze. Getting to the idea, what started tonight's topic, was when my husband showed a sign of grief. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm smiling. And I said, okay. And he says, all right, fine, I'll just tell you later. Oh, my God! Now I want to know. Well, you know how one thought associates to another thought, associates to another thought, and then, boom, a trigger response of something. So he's thinking of Christmas card and Christmas card. Oh, did so-and-so send a Christmas card? Oh, my God, I hope they don't send me a Christmas card because this is what I think of them. And there was this whole chain of response, and something did not get closure a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. It didn't get closure, so this was a friendly whisper of reminder that a promise that you had to yourself that you were going to create closure.
The bookmark was still there.
Okay?
Right.
And so it was basically say, hey, you know, how are we going to create this closure? Now, what had happened in a humanistic form was that he was getting lost, and all the chemical peptides are being created by just this one quick flash of a thought with the triggers and the images. And it was there. And it created a whole hum. And then it can then unfold a whole mass of, wait for it, which means I'm trying to remember, is things that have never happened yet, and people call it anxiety. Anxiety is that it's never happened yet, but you're looking at your old baggage, and now you're predicting the future that it can happen. There's actually a healing tool that Dr. Tad James does, and that's a really cool healing tool about going out into the future, turning around, and all of a sudden it has to disappear because it hasn't happened yet. Well, maybe I'll put that up someday. I don't know. But when we do this, I said, okay, what triggered you to have that thought? Well, I don't know. I says, let's look. He said, oh, Christmas cards, which got him thinking to the next thing. Well, did they send us a Christmas card? And then it went on to, well, I don't know. I remember what they just did to me, and that hurt. Oh, my God. And then he started running with, you know, even though the soul says, hey, remember you promised to heal it? He then drops further into the human mystic because he's feeling the chemical peptides from the thought, which then goes, well, I got to survive this. Oh, gosh. And then he categorizes it, starts putting them up there, and then coming up with a resolution on a humanistic scale of, oh, my God, I got to do this because I got to, it was going into survival mode. Is this about right?
Yes.
Now, And I said, okay, what words would best describe what all that meant? And you said, trying to take what's mine.
Yes.
Okay? And these were his words, and they are very important because his words are how he defines that moment. And his words are correct because that is his world. And so I'm going to respect his world. So trying to take what is mine. Now, even though this just freshly happened, which we call a fresh experience, let me wrap your arm. So trying to take what is mine, is this happening just now? Is there something in the past? Yes. Inside the womb, at birth? Yes. It's somewhere else.
Okay.
Is it in your past life? Yes. Do I want to search that? No. I can find a closer, fresh experience, and that is from the time of conception up to the age you are now. Inside the womb, at birth, 1 to 5, 5 to 10. 10, 9, 8, 7. Now, did you have your brother take anything on you by age 7? Did people take...
I don't remember, but I'm sure being brothers, we took stuff from each other.
So
yeah.
who was older?
My brother by 2 years, a year and 9 months or so, almost 2 years.
What you're doing with this particular person that you had triggered with a thought from a Christmas card, you heard the words in the head, and so if you hear it, then chances are you probably have a dominant sensory system that needs to be cleaned out, okay, of the words. And then let's find out. So you hear, now think about what that person said to you on that phone, and then that signature still affect you. Yes, it's a 1, meaning it's starting to build again. What do I mean by build again?
Right, so if you don't heal or process, create closure all the way, when we put it on a scale from 0 to 10 and give it a color, we want it down to 0, and we want it white or clear, so that means that it's done. It is done. But if there's anything left and it starts to, even just at a 1, it can build back up and start to control.
Exactly. So it was not bothering him. Time took it, but then the trigger occurred, meaning the signature, he never resolved his relationship to the signature. The signature can be any man, woman, or child. The signature is very specific to him. And so we know that by age 7, that this signature is done something to him to the point that it controlled his world, took him out of his center of joy in the caudate nucleus. Now remember, the caudate nucleus is a place in the brain that only holds joy or fear. And if joy is missing, fear must replace it, yes? So that signature left a fear into that caudate nucleus and joy was taken. So this is then why it feels like an enemy, because what was yours has been taken. If you start looking at the treasure chest healing tool, you'll see when I talk about, it'll feel like their goobers are on you and that they took something. And there is that exchange that causes a very much a problem.
So, and it could be the smallest thing now as our adult self, you know, 30, 40, 50, whatever, as our adult self, oh, that just seems so silly. At that time, it ruled. There's a movie scene that's going through my head right now. The Holiday with Jude Law, and the other people, Cameron Diaz and other such people, Kate Winslet. His little girls in the movie, you know, siblings, hey, she had more marshmallows in her hot chocolate than me.
Yes.
At that age, 7 and younger, that rules people's worlds. They got more marshmallows than me, you know.
I think she's got to have something to process. What do you think? Go ahead.
Maybe. Who had more marshmallows than me? Anyway, so...
Just not fair.
No way, justice. So then... But at that point, so it may be difficult when we're this age, looking back like, wait a minute, what? You know, that kind of thing. But it may, he's not happy. What I'm getting to is that it's a difficult recollection maybe of this specific issue, but it may be that type of event that was going on. At that point, it kind of ruled your world.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't so much.
And when we bring it up, people say, well, I don't have that consciously. They're only thinking of the conscious moment. I don't have that. And all we're asking, have you ever in the past? Is it in the foundation? Because if it is, what's going to happen, it will still rule your world, and it can build back up. So let's go a little further. Maybe arm place. And the signature that was now, it happened at age 7, and it was astronomical, the pain. Yes, the signature that, did they take something? Now, did they put something on you? Yes. So in this case, they put something on you. And this can be their rules, their beliefs, their way of living, and trying to control you to live in their world. Do you have examples?
Well, a fresh experience. I have several siblings. One in particular made a comment to one of my parental units recently that about Disney. If you know anything about me, and I'm pointing to things on the video, so that makes you want to watch the video, I like Disney!
Yes. Yeah, everywhere.
Right.
We have no problem with that.
Mickey Mouse, Minnie, everywhere, yes.
Right, everywhere, they're everywhere! The whole
It's
Christmas
all about
tree.
the ears.
Yes. I was born a mile from Disneyland, and our Southern California family loved Disney. All about that. My mom talks about watching the fireworks from their backyard and everything. So we're, yay, we like to go to the park, we like to have fun, that kind of thing. So a sibling said, oh, well, I'm not interested in taking my offspring to that place on the planet until we can talk about corporate branding and that kind of thing. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, geez.
Dun, dun, dun.
Taking away the
Right.
sparkling experience.
Exactly. So that is her belief system. I'm not going to get in the way of that. That's her choice, her world, whatever she
But
wants
when
to
you
do.
were younger,
It completely ruled. To some degree, you could, if they still have some little fuel and fire involved in their
you gotta watch
mental
the
or emotional
video.
system. There might be some fuel left of that situation. And so, to some degree, it is an insult.
yes, it's an insult. Why? Well, how would you look at it as an insult?
That
Those are frightening words, but why?
because that belief system, the way that it was worded and stated, has energy to me that's above what I believe. But there are two belief systems. I pro Disney, against Disney. Sorry, this is not sponsored by any corporate branding. This radio show. Anyway, but this is something I like, and this person likes this, and so does this person have to squash my likes and interests because of their belief system?
True. And what she just described, as I said when we were muscle testing Scott, it was something was taken from him or something was put on him. And she described another way the energy can be, and that can be higher or lower. And we'll get into all that someday. Anyway, let's look a little closer. And, well, first let's muscle test you, and that is, did the energy, she take something? In this case, the energy was taken from her. And when she looks at it on a spiritual perspective, she could see that she's trying to be better than me, and she's trying to take everything from me, and she's trying to get all the damn marshmallows. And so she has a lot of injustice she has to heal. So let that go. Go to Scott. Scott is all about the, so somebody put something on you, and it was all these rules and beliefs. Oh
So
my God.
it wasn't taken, it was put on.
Mom, Dad,
That's interesting.
framework, church, everything. Must follow, or reward and punishment? No. You must follow or the love's taken away. Why did you follow so blindly? And that is because lung, thyroid, heart, liver, gallbladder, stomach, pancreas. The joy, it would be taken away. See, I asked about reward and punishment. So now I got to look at my sheet. And it is about, and low self-esteem, lives through others, helplessness. Because there was a part of you that felt helpless about the whole thing.
Right.
You felt helpless. Do you know what helplessness is?
Yes.
So you're familiar. So when we ask you, do you have any conscious contact about this story, you say no, but are you familiar with it? And you'll say yes, and that means that there's something that's there. Doesn't mean that you're still attached, but in some cases, if your body said you didn't resolve it, then that is your way of saying, aha, got it, it's there. So it's very familiar. So what happens is that when you have a thought that makes you take it personal, when you have a thought that makes you take it personal, understand that you're going to lose power, and that that power you're losing keeps that alive. And there's many reasons why. And in this case, see, Jen has to have this injustice, and it needs to be corrected. For him, he's going to be helpless. And if we go a little bit further, is there anything else? Yeah, you can't control the events. You're stuck with the events. That's why you have to follow these rules.
That's my lot in life.
That's your lot in life. Oh, you just hit a key word. The lot in life. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be back after this.